Audio recording for this meeting has begun.
Year 2 project narrative development will be one of the requirements for the continuation application kit. So, well, let me just go through the slide. Year 2 project narrative development should be the focus of the federal awardees moving forward. Most information on the continuation application kit requirements, access, and process will be disseminated on February 29th. So you're going to get information on February 29th of what is involved in the continuation application kit for year 2. In the meantime, work on your year 2 project narrative because they will be submitted at the same time. DVPI, PI purpose, overall goals, and specific objectives. So the primary purpose of DVPI is to accomplish 6 overall goals. For purpose area 2, you'll be addressing these goals through meeting your objectives. And what these goals are is to build tribal, urban, and federal capacity to provide coordinated community response to Native victims of domestic and sexual violence. You will increase access to domestic and sexual violence prevention, advocacy, crisis intervention, and behavioral health services for Native victims and their families, promote trauma-informed services for Native victims of domestic and sexual violence and their families, offer a health care provider and community education on domestic and sexual violence, respond to the health care needs of Native victims of domestic and sexual violence, and incorporate culturally appropriate practices and/or faith-based services for American Indian and Alaska Native victims of sexual and domestic violence. So those are the goals. They were in the funding announcement. We went over them in Denver, and nothing there has changed. For DVPI Purpose Area 2, you'll be focusing on forensic health care, as you know, and your objectives are expand available medical forensic services to victims of domestic and sexual violence, foster coalitions and networks to improve coordination and collaboration among forensic health care programs to ensure adequate services exist either on-site or by referral for victims of domestic and sexual violence 24/7 year-round, educate and train providers to conduct medical forensic exams, promote community education on available medical forensic exams, improve health system organizational practices to improve medical forensic services and care coordination among victim services, establish local health system policies for sexual assault, domestic violence, and child maltreatment, integrate culturally appropriate treatment services throughout the medical forensic examination process, and implement trauma-informed care interventions to support victims and their children. So, you guys all know that. Those are the objectives. Again, we went over them in Denver. So, moving forward to the development of Year 2 project narrative. This is, again, review. Because many awarded projects did not address the DVPI purpose area specific objectives as required in the grant application for year 1. So all the awardees are required to adhere to the project narrative requirements listed in the funding opportunity for the year 2 project narrative. So when we told you in Denver to revise year 1 to meet the objectives, just do that for your year 2 project narrative. These TA webinars are scheduled for projects to provide everyone with guidance on the requirements so that you're all successful with development of year 2 project narrative. So like I said in the beginning, they're offered throughout the month of February and into early March, and it's the same webinar. So you're on the call today. You do not need to attend another webinar for this. Although just keep your eye out for the February 29th education opportunity for the continuation application. So don't panic. You're no longer required to submit year 1 revisions. This gives you 4 months to develop a year 2 project narrative. They'll be due sometime in mid to late May. IHS is conducting these TA webinars through February and March to get everybody updated. So question, what if I have questions about this process or how to start writing my year 2 narrative? So if you have questions, you don't know where to begin, contact your project officer who can provide you with that assistance. And question 2, is it too soon to start working? Like we mentioned earlier, start the required revision process now. The sooner you start, the more time you'll have for questions and to receive guidance. So earl earlier, I had reached out to some of my grantees and asked them if they had questions. And sure enough, somebody answered almost right away. She was in the process of writing her year 2 narrative, and she already had questions. And I asked if she had gotten on a webinar, and she said she had, but she didn't think it was the venue to ask the questions that she had. So if you don't ask anything today, but you're not quite sure what you want to ask yet, start your revisions now. So as the questions come up, you can reach out to your project officer now so that you have time to get the narrative written, because you'll have other work to do for the continuation application kit. So the sooner the better. Um, so again, you'll submit your Year 2 project narrative revisions as part of the continuation application kit. They will not be submitted separately. You'll submit them at the same time. And again, more information is coming on February 29th. So keep your eyes peeled. So Year 2 project narrative requirements. IHS strongly emphasizes the use of data and evidence in policymaking and program development and implementation. Applicants must identify one or more evidence-based practice-based evidence, best or promising practice, and or local effort that they plan to implement. DVPI promotes the use and development of evidence-based and practice-based models that represent culturally appropriate prevention and treatment approaches to domestic and sexual violence from a community-driven context. This is the focus of what the project should gear their narrative towards. There are some examples of best practices on the website that you can look at if you're unsure of where to begin there. In the application review information section in the funding opportunity, and this was included on your flash drives in Denver, go to section B, page 28, and just follow those instructions on how to write the project narrative, and you should be fine. So use that as your guide. Again, you should have that from your flash drive. And that's just a reiteration of the same thing. Follow the FOA guidance. Use the DVPI Purpose Area 2 specific objectives, which they want us to repeat again. So expand available medical forensic services to victims of DSA or domestic and sexual violence, DSV. Foster coalitions and networks to improve coordination and collaboration among forensic healthcare programs to ensure adequate services exist 24/7. Educate and train providers to conduct medical forensic exams. Promote community education on available forensic services. So like DVPI Purpose Area 1 will probably do the community coordinated response. That's what their focus is, where DVPI 2 is focused on the medical forensic exam. So they need a way to link to you. The Purpose Area 1 needs a way to link to forensic medical services, and DVPI Purpose Area 2 needs to describe how they link to the coordinated community response, but you don't have to develop a coordinated community response. Just demonstrate how you'll link together. Improve health system organizational practices to improve medical forensic services and care coordination among victims. So same philosophy there. Establish local health system policies for sexual assault, domestic violence, and child maltreatment. Integrate culturally appropriate treatment services throughout the medical forensic exam process, and implement trauma-informed care interventions to support victims and their children. Confirm that the Year 2 project narrative addresses all the required objectives listed for your chosen purpose area. Review all project narrative activities and make sure they fit in and address the objectives. So your activities feed the objectives, which support the goals. make sure that the year 2 project narrative matches the budget narrative that you have. You will be working on your year 2 budget narrative as part of the continuation application kit, and you'll be hearing more about that. Reminder that all the awardees will work with their TA provider on local data collection plan for year 1 and year 2, and that local data collection plan needs to be finalized and submitted in May of 2017, so a little more than a year from now. So the revisions and submission of the local data collection plan is not required at this time. What's required at this time is your year 2 narrative, the continuation application kit, and then after that or during this whole process, you'll be working on your local data collection plan with your TA provider. So who should you contact for questions? Your first person to contact are your project officers. And here's the list of the area project officers, and they're also available on the flash drive. When you see the acting in parentheses, that means that these areas are still hiring their person, and this is who's acting until they hire their TA provider for that area. Your program official for DVPI is Lieutenant Commander Sean Bennett. So you go to your project officer first, and if for some reason maybe you're not getting your needs met through that project officer and you need to contact someone for help, go to Sean. He's great, but I think all the project officers know what they've signed on to, and I'm sure they're all very helpful. But sometimes we need to turn to Sean to get maybe some specific questions or issues teased out. Then your grants management specialist is Andrew Diggs. If you have questions specific to the grant process, excuse me. And then the technical assistance providers for the data collection tool are through 11 tribal epidemiology centers and 1 urban Indian epidemiology center. And you should have been in contact with them when you were in Denver and gone over kind of what your plan for data collection is going to be, or how to contact them and what meetings you guys have set up. Elisa writes, do you know if the year 2 narratives will require sections C and D from the FOA? Let's see, Elisa, what pages are you looking at so I can take a look and answer that question? Oh, here, there it was. There's D. Okay, local data collection tool is section D, and that does not get submitted until May of 2017. And C, organizational capacity. I don't think so. I think those were part of the application process. I think you're all set there. So you'll be going, let's see, before I finish. So section B, project narrative, is on page 28, and it's specific to how you are laying out your project. If something has changed that's significant in your organizational capacity, I probably would put that in here as a note, that if there's a significant change. Then again, the local data collection and program evaluation is for your TA provider. Now, if I'm wrong, and I could be on section C, see what they say on February 29th when they go over the continuation application and see if they address that there. All right, that's it. Any other questions? I know it's really similar to what you heard in Denver. Basically, it's no more year 1 revisions. Start on your year 2 narrative. You'll be getting information on February 29th on the rest of the package. And you do not need to submit your data collection tool at this time, but you should be working with your TA providers on teasing out how you're going to do that. Reach out to your project officers. You know, I need to go to the February 29th talk too, so I can hear the rest of this as it gets laid out. Okay, any other questions, anyone? I'm sorry about my cough, I apologize. The slides are available on the website so that if you wanted to take a look at these again, you can do that. And remember, there's the narrative development checklist. So let's take a look at that. It doesn't say anything about sections C and D on the checklist. So I'm assuming really what they want you to do is take something that's evidence-based or practice-based or something that you find in the literature that is promising and use that to develop your activities for your objectives. And if you have questions about that, go ahead and call your project officer. But yeah, the checklist doesn't say anything about areas C or D. Yeah, doesn't take an hour to go through this stuff. If somebody wants to email me, you should have my email address, but it's Teresa, T-H-E-R-E-S-A, .friend, F-R-I-E-N-D, like I'm your pal, at ihs.gov. And I'll try to clarify anything that wasn't clear during this talk. So I hope you found it helpful. Good luck with your projects. I know it's a lot of work, but it's really good work. So thanks everybody for doing what you're doing. And if that's it, then I'll sign off. I don't see anybody typing. So everybody take care.